Celestial rising, divine afternoon, and grand night to the beautiful divine mirage watching this mindful message. It's your divine reflection, divine messenger, and we are back with another divine observation. And if you choose to and you enjoy these videos, excuse me, make sure you like, comment, subscribe for more divine messages. Excuse me. But for today, we have something that agitated my solar awareness a little bit, because a lot of the times, a lot of teenagers, a lot of preteens, and even these children, they're already being exposed to being over-sexualized. And I understood that with what happened just this week alone, I was able to see, not even just that, even with this moon, as I'm looking at this mood-altering device, I'm understanding that a lot of these beings are out here doing, I would say, child sexual abuse tactics upon each other, and they're not really aware of it, because a lot of times, a lot of these beings are so spiritually corrupted. As soon as they get home, they don't have an outlet to call out for help, because the outlet that is supposed to be helping them is actually not really helping them, but is basically distracting them from understanding what's right and what's wrong from your moral perspective. But because a lot of their parents don't have any morals, then they're not going to teach their children or guide their children into how to guide their morality when they get older. Meaning that a lot of times these children will do things at a young age that's accepted, and then when you comment or when you correct the behavior that is suspicious, or it should be suspicious of somebody with common sense, that's when now the ego of the parent or the ego of the guardian or the ego of the counselor or the teacher, they'll look at you like you crazy, because why are you sitting here not letting kids be kids? But a lot of times, from the story, from what I heard, some new characters to the story. I want to say 12-year-old boy named Christian, 13-year-old boy named Malachi. Now, they were in my summer camp for June from last year. Now, the thing is, I was asking him, how's his boy Daniel doing? Because Daniel was the one when I first got introduced to attention seeking and then validation, but then doing homosexual acts at a young age, to where when I disciplined Daniel last year in the summer around June, July, because of these things, it was very interesting on how he used to get picked on, how he was getting bullied. But Christian and Malachi introduced me to a boy named Xavier, who used to go to his school, but he's in high school now. He's in 9th grade. He's 15 years old. And supposedly, long story short, they were just telling me how they call him the teenage Diddy. And I was just like, okay, so why do y'all do that? Why do y'all call him that? And they basically said he was sending them messages, and he was talking to Xavier, the one who he was talking to Christian and Malachi, basically saying he likes to touch on little girls, little boys. He doesn't mind what age it is, and he doesn't really care what the victim looks like. If he wants it, he's going to take it. And they thought it was kind of funny, and I was just really questioning their observation. I was like, so wait a minute, why do y'all find that shit funny? And they was just like, well, Christian was like, well, he don't try that shit with me, but, other people, he be trying it, this and that. And I just kind of was bothered by that, because I even asked him today, like, what's going on? What's the update with Xavier? Supposedly he's in France or whatever. And one of the boys was like, or Christian was like, he probably may be doing it to other kids out there who really knows what's going on. And I was just thinking to myself, this stuff has to stop, because now we got all these different influencers getting exposed, different celebrities getting exposed. I'm not surprised, because a lot of these people are pushing transhumanism upon the kids. And when they're grooming these adults, and then the adults are gossiping about it and talking about it, or even if you have older siblings, you have older reflections in your household, a lot of times they're going to be sitting here gossiping or talking to a bunch of people who are listening to them or having conversations with them, or even in a close relationship with them, so where the child is basically eavesdropping or being nosy on what's being talked about. So then when they sit there with their parents or their guardian or their best friend or whatever, and they're hearing these conversations, they're basically digesting what is being said, and their mind is basically, I would say, is becoming a sponge for what is becoming normalized. So whenever the child is seeing their friends do homo acts or whatever, that's when their mind's going to say, well, it's accepted because my friends are doing it, so why won't I just do it? That's when I understand that, as I was monitoring, because even Josiah and Ian, and y'all going to hear that name a lot, but just yesterday, he was kicking Ian, then he humped him and all that. Even today, it was getting worse. He decided to, once again, he was hugging on Ian, grabbing on Ian, and then it was like Ian was getting him out of this submissive pose or whatever. Like, they were fighting or play fighting. And I was telling him, like, bro, stop. Like, little ones, chill out. So Ian was trying to get him off him, then he started grabbing him. But these grabs that they're doing, they're not actually normal grabs, but he's like humping them. As soon as I'm monitoring this shit, I'm like, bro, Ian, stop, bro, what are you doing? And he'll look at me as if I'm in the wrong for correcting his behavior. And I'm just like, Ian. And then like Josiah will be laughing. So now, of course, I'm not upset with the child, because the child does not really know any better. The child does not really know what's going on. They're 5 years old. And, you know, I give them grace for that. But after a while, you know, there's only so much that can be done with just doing that, because you can't just walk up to people that you're cool with or that you're close with or whatever and just do that like it's normal, because you may end up getting your life taken from you. And a lot of times I noticed that even this would be enabling. So I realized too, for the first part that I had to put down, a lot of times children are going to shout out the things that their spirit cannot explain. So a lot of times the things that I see as bad behavior is just a lot of times their trauma that's speaking to them in code. So even today, they were, I want to say in the room, yeah, they were in the classroom. So we were throwing this beanbag around. I was just sitting down, just thinking, just monitoring them. And then they were throwing the beanbag, and we're just throwing it over this table back and forth. Then as I threw the beanbag, I threw it, and there was a girl named Juniper. She joined them as well. So it was Josiah, Ian, and then Juniper. They all went to go get the beanbag by the bookshelf. And so as they were all fighting for it, Ian bent over to go get the beanbag. And then, of course, Josiah's laughing because he's having a great time. But I noticed that he's pulling Ian's pants down to look at his butt. And then it's just like, by him even about to do a pose, I said, Josiah, what are you doing? Because as soon as I throw it, I had to sit there and I monitor them, because I understand that they do things that aren't really supposed to be normal in this society. But society accepts that, because what's wrong with it? If they like each other, they enjoy each other, why take that from them? I ain't gonna lie to you, that really should not be normalized, because if you start normalizing these confusing acts that you may not be aware of, so you can start articulating it. If you can articulate why you enjoy this same identity that you want to be cool with, then it's like, okay, cool, I'm cool with it, you're consensual with it, then you have the other person say so, like, go ahead and do what you got to do, I don't really care. But at a young age, you don't have any identity with what's going on. So because of that, I realized that too, a lot of times when kids are mimicking sexual acts, they're not going to just rebel against me telling them that you shouldn't be doing it, because for one, it's basically their solar awareness crying out for what's been infiltrated into their codex, meaning that the ego is basically calling on me to help monitor what they're about to be controlled into doing, meaning that Josiah doesn't actually know that what he's doing should not be done, but it's because he's so young mentally that there's a parasite latched onto him that's helping his trauma call out for my help. So when I correct it, when I ask some questions as far as a 13 and 12-year-old, I'm just thinking to myself, these things should not be okay it shouldn't be okay for society to be laughing at people's pain or trauma. And then we go out in society and then we're silent about these acts. These actions are the reason why societies in secret, they're willing to give us up to a bunch of deities who are crawling underneath these different tunnels, and they're using themselves to transfer their consciousness into our bodies so that they can start doing the exact same inversion programming. Not only just that, when they're giving you sacrificial lambs that look famous, and then once they're selling out you're a famous influencer, and then they're having the exact same program or process happening to people who are going into these realms, signing deals, getting all these different sponsors and endorsements. All you're doing is giving away your morality, and not just that, but you're descending your spiritual awareness from actually leaving where you were supposed to be living. I understood that, for one, it's them just reenacting with what entered their psyche without them having consent. So the parasite entered their body, and the child did not give them any type of consent. That's why I understood that, for one, these beings are taking their will, the will to live is being taken advantage, or the advantage is being taken care of through the parasitic force that wants to force themselves upon this child, because now the child does not really understand that what they're doing is not actually healthy. But because they know it's not healthy, the guide is not going to be able to tell them what is not healthy about that, which is exactly why you got to be able to understand that, for one, this is basically the spiritual corruption for the database that they are living in. Now, for that second one, I understood that It was an inversion agenda that is going to target their blueprint. And it's because of how divine and how enlightened the child is being. This child is just being itself. But a lot of times, the other children who are not being themselves, they're not able to actually see why the child is doing this to them. So they'll follow them because it's a hive mind. So for one, the mimic spirit has to be able to keep mimicking the action that the other child or the friend is doing. So a lot of times too, when people are going through the abuse, when people are going through the sexual traumas, when people are going through the different programmings that their mindset has to get used to seeing, it's because they're used to seeing that same exact sexual act happening to them every single day by someone that they are trusting. It can be a big brother, a cousin, an uncle, an aunt, mom, dad, brother, sister, or even a best friend. So when these entities, when they decide to come up with the committee for the inversion, that's going to happen. Not even just going to happen, but it's happening right now. Because I'm stopping it every single day to the point to where now I'm going to war with people who look just like me, to where I feel like I'm the bad guy for even correcting this behavior. I understood that from one, the confusion of gender isn't really supposed to be confusing, because for one, we should all know what we are being. But the thing is though, we're going to define and trying to define what actually isn't being ourselves. You being yourself is not authentic within your gender. So when gender is confused about what it wants to be for today, people start acting as if they are playing a character that they don't have a role in, that they're not trying to have a role in as well. I was trying to say that at the exact same time, but I was thinking too fast. But that's what I understood as well too. Because it's not random, it's really meant to happen because it's scripted into all of our databases. Unfortunately, not everybody is going to be biologically themselves, because for your past life, something happened to where what you were studying, what you were learning, what you were accepting, it became normalized to where it magnetized towards your consciousness. So before you left, you had to have a reminder like, hey, I'm going to do the exact same programming to you in this lifestyle. And if you're not aware of it in this lifestyle, then for the next lifestyle, I'm going to get the exact same beings to start guiding you into being inverted again, so you can learn what you have to be understanding about yourself. So that's when I realized too that these things were designed so that they are able to alter the balance of our energy that's rising and descending every single day. Not only just that, this is basically how too they're going to try to deplete the masculine and feminine energies that lay within our internal aspect of our consciousness. So not only just that, if a child or a teenager or an adult is forgetting who they are being spiritually, they are basically easier to manipulate. If a child does not have, or the adult or the teenager, if they don't have any indication on who they spiritually are, then they are easily going to be manipulated. It'll be too easy for that to happen. Which is why a lot of adults can't see it happening, because they're not used to spiritual warfare. A lot of people only can see the life in the physical. And the thing is, so we got to understand as well, not everybody has quantum information in their mind. Not everybody just wants to learn about consciousness or spirituality, or contradictions in both of these titles. Then that's what I understood as well. When people or kids or beings have an identity distortion, that is basically the first step for their solar awareness to be disconnected from a connection in one or unison. Because of that, that's when they understand if a being starts to be confused about their sexuality and they start doing things out of the morale, to where they're afraid of society learning about what they were doing behind closed doors, then you're not being true to yourself. So now your identity is now being distorted to the point to where now you can't actually define what you want to be for today as a man or a woman. So you might as well be both in the same exact days of your weekend. People are so weak mentally, they have no idea how to become strong in their own identity through their gender that we see physically. But they don't want to see that physically because they want to have their gender altered so they can become more of a victim to get life handled to them. The one thing I learned as well, transhumanism and this whole ideology, this whole occultic secrecy of mystics and sorcerers and just beings that are in Luciferian spaces. These beings disguise this as inclusion. So now the thing is, it's always going to be about control and never about love for these beings, because these beings don't know how to love themselves nor anybody else. Because they don't love themselves, they were already the first ones to be altered, because of course with their experimentation within their blueprint was already flawed. They already understood that they gave up their morals to beings for gold and silver and higher currencies that we still work hard for to obtain for today. That's what I understood as well. Transhumanism it'll touch on you softly. It'll groom your mind on a soft I would say, complexion. It looks sweet, it looks nice, it sounds beautiful, it'll give you grace. But what I realized too is just replacing the essence you have with a behavior that is programmed by your own behavioral patterns. When your behavioral patterns are now manipulated into what you're being confused about, you have now stopped loving yourself. And then the love you stopped loving for yourself has become control of the love you lost for yourself. So when you lose the love for yourself, now the control of hatred will become that love for you at this point. Because you hate yourself, you will start emitting that hatred and masquerading it as a form of love. But that form of love should not be accepted if you're not aware or using discernment for the being that's stepping right in front of you. Because if this being stepping right in front of you is not doing anything beneficial for you, then you are getting your energy harvested by a being who needs that bearing of your enlightenment. Now, I understood as well, a child that doesn't know their nature is really it's a vessel, it's a safety net, it's a trap, it's a reincarnated essence of energy that's going to come right back into its own delusion. It becomes a mockery, it becomes an example, it becomes a crucifixion. And that's because the behavior allowed itself to now submit to the behaviors of beings who lack, I would say, the capacity for even wanting to become more responsible for doing better actions. They understand that bad behavior is good upon their lineage, their family. So when they understood that, they started spreading that towards other families that they are handling to our lifestyle. Because these beings that are in these occultic societies behind closed doors, they want to get closer to becoming rich or wealthy or whatever, financially free. And they'll do anything they can to reach that point. So once they do that, now it's like they don't have a purpose anymore, because their vessel was slaughtered into algorithms and entities that are able to observe the algorithm outside of our screening. Meaning that beings are watching us screen our own mind every single day. So when you're looking into your phone, you're basically having your ego screened and printed right in front of your face, because it's like Saturn's technology of the black cube was able to unfold to the point to where now we're basically holding the black cube of Saturn in front of our face. So where now we're not actually holding up a phone, but we're holding up a device, altering communication through an energetic gateway of universal pathways. These pathways are now able to send us signals into our mind to make us think that we're seeing what we are learning and comprehending and wanting to talk about and learn from. But all you're doing is just watching yourself freeze your pattern from the source that you are still stuck in subconsciously. That's when I knew that it's basically them deleting the solar memory slowly but surely. Every single time transhumanism is disguised as inclusion or it's a form of love, that goal is to control that love to where you don't have any love for yourself anymore. If you don't have love for yourself anymore and you grow up hating yourself and your gender, you will now place that exact same process into your children. And then your children's children will become just like that inverted process of your mindset and your hatred. And then once that keeps becoming accepted, society will be exactly what it is for today. Kids will keep on grooming kids, and then older kids as well will start hanging out with younger kids, and they'll start abusing these kids, start aping them, molesting them. And every time they keep doing that, when a child does not know how to speak up for themselves, they'll go to the guardian and say, hey, this guy or this boy in the neighborhood, he's doing this and that to us, and it's like, I don't feel comfortable. And then of course some parents will say, man, I don't got time for that. You just sitting here saying bullshit, this and that. You're disregarding what your child is actually going through, what they are experiencing, and yet you can't sit there with the truth that they are experiencing, to the point where now you are spiritually neglecting what they are going through. They're going through child sexual abuse by another child that's dominating them, and they don't know how to speak up for themselves, and they trust you for their judgment, and you still are judging them for what they can't control, or they don't even know how to control yet, because parents don't know how to control what happened to them as well. So when it goes down to the child, they just shake their hand and say, go ahead and go play. So we're not going to talk about the problem that just happened to your child when you weren't watching. I understand as well, the real predator is silence. Silence and being compliant to these actions is why people are actually still predators for today. That's exactly why the predators are still in your family. They're in the jails, the schools, they're teaching, they're professors, they're influencers, they're celebrities, they're preachers. That's exactly why society will sit there and ask themselves, why are these people allowed in our society? Because you won't speak up on it. I keep saying that. People are so afraid to speak up on it, but behind closed doors, they'll gossip about it. But if you were truly against this transhumanism agenda, you would speak up on it every single day for what's happening to our children. And if you don't care, then you're a part of the system. You work for the system. You're a part of them. So you're an android being that was made from an experimentation of underground, I would say, experimentations that the experimenters were working on through your mind. So now for example, that Teen Diddy child who's still out there, openly admitting that he's a predator, preying on other kids, basically, people not intervening is exactly why the environment becomes the accomplice that people are going to comply with. Because now when the environment is accepting of what this child is doing, depending on the size as well, they don't know how to handle that. So they would have to call the police, they would have to call this and that. But yet and still, will the behavior be changed by this child? These children are calling out for help, and society does not want to actually help them without putting them into a juvenile detention center or without going into a prison. These children are basically screaming for help, and adults don't know how to help these children screaming for help because nobody helped them. So if nobody helped this adult, why would they help this child? If the child can't help themselves, then the adult will basically think, well, shit, that's tough. You might as well go ahead. That's a tough titty. Might as well go ahead and just focus on yourself and go find a therapist when you get older, because we all go through some shit. It's like, that's not the attitude to have. This child needs to, I hate saying that saying too. I didn't mean to say that was tough, but that's tough shit. A lot of times, that's not the way to go. On top of that too, all evil needs is just passivity, or a passage into just being passionate with what we allow. Evil just needs a passage for not having permission. Evil does not need permission for your body or your consent. Because the mindset or the intention of wanting to be evil does not actually care what you're being submissive into or what you're screaming about, what you're crying about, etc. It doesn't give a fuck. It wants to take advantage of what you think you are. So when you have this identity or this confidence about you, it wants to take that away. So like the parasite will see and it will smell it, it'll taste it. It'll lust after that energy that you have for yourself. And because you're so positive within yourself, they can already understand that. For one, they're going to send a signal to your mom. When she's carrying you inside of her womb, her energy, her domain of your crown chakra, that's when now the passivity will go into the womb, and that will cause you generational harm. Because the mom, either she allowed this being to be altered in her womb, so where now the beings at 5 years old, their DNA is already been activated. They've already became what they were destined to be. So now they have to learn what they weren't being the whole entire time. But they were observing themselves being the action that was caused upon them at a young age, to where now their guardians are not going to be able to save them from themselves. So a celestial being steps in and says, hey, you cannot do this. Now, of course, you can do it, but you should not be doing this because you are losing your solar awareness. But you're not aware of that just yet because you're young. And at 5, they have no idea what I'm talking about. But I can still plant that seed to where when they get older, my discipline will tell them, like, hey, when you're pulling down a boy's pants, like their actual sweats where you're seeing their butt cheeks, yeah, go sit your ass down. And it got so bad to where Josiah was fake crying and looking at me, giving me that mad face like I'm supposed to be like, oh, your mad face looks scary, Josiah. Go ahead and sit. Go ahead and play, bro. I'm so sorry to make you. I don't give a fuck if you mad. You can't do that. And then on top of that, it's bad as well when the 10-year-olds and the 11-year-olds are doing the exact same thing. It's like, it's sad to me to where I gotta tell 11-year-olds who still play with toys, 12-year-olds who still play with toys. I'm like, bro, y'all can't be humping each other on the beanbag. And then being embarrassed, like, bro, what are you talking about, Mr. Darius? What the fuck do you mean what I'm talking about? I watched you get on top of him. And then to the other boy, it's like, you're sitting there allowing him to do that to you. Now, I get that you're young, but never let another boy lay on top of you. To where you don't even ask for help. It's like, do you enjoy that? To where now it got bad because one of the other boys, so Tanner did to Tyler, to where you're going behind Tyler, and it's like you're doing humping or thrusting actions, and then you have your hands like this, like he's in submission. Not ask you, why are you doing that to Tyler? Because he did it to me. So is that okay? And then of course I got these two kids who finna go into middle school. They listening to me the whole entire time talking about you're just gonna allow him to do that? And then of course Tanner's like, well, yeah, why not? And they like, hey, yo, what you got going on? I'm just like, Tanner, allowing that to happen to you that's not normal, my brother. You shouldn't let any guy do that to you, especially when you get older, because when that happens, your life won't be yours anymore. You won't have that love for yourself anymore to where you'll go into a state of mind that you can't find anymore. And somebody else will govern it for you to where you'll be put into submission at a young age. And then you may be trafficking into me just thinking, but you may be trafficking into a realm, don't want to cast it upon him, but being submissive to a boy and not standing up for yourself will get you killed in this world. It'll get you kidnapped, trafficked. It'll get you into a whole different environment that you are not ready to be in. So now the last one, having authentic protection is going to happen when you are spiritually leading leadership. Not only just that, it goes beyond supervision. When you're understanding how to protect leadership through spiritual awareness, you are now not doing it just for supervision, but you're doing it because you can envision how you used to be through the future's eyes. We don't really actually need more hoods with titles. We don't need adults to just sit in a room. We don't need the media to portray what beings should be doing for their children. What we basically need is just guardians in the spiritual realms that are able to come down and start guiding different beings into being aware of their own unawareness and their actions that they think are supposed to be funny, normal, they're supposed to be accepted in their household. If your mom and dad accept that, I can't do anything about that. But in my face, that's not accepted. So the beings who can discern energy go beyond this distorted behavior, this confusing behavior, and restore that balance and that structure for these beings in confusion. That's when now that order will be able to overthrow the confusion for their identity. Not only just that, a child or a being, a teenager or an adult that I am protecting spiritually for today, literally is carrying the vibration for the future. If we cannot protect our young, and we can't protect the elders as well, if you can't protect yourself, you are now going to just funnel or fumble this energy that's supposed to be helping the future evolve forevermore. And by that evolution, because I don't believe in evolution, but you have to start changing. Now, when you're changing, you are now advancing what you always been in the future. So right now, currently, if you're not building for a better future, all you're doing is letting it go to shit, letting it go to waste. So we're basically living in idiocracy. Go watch that documentary as well. The more stupid society becomes, the more that we accept stupidity or stupid acts or idiotic acts or actions. Once these actions start being dispelled into society, they will start being pulverized into the womb, altered in the womb, depending on the adult's consent. Because adults are actually knocked down in the hospitals, or they just say, yeah, go ahead and do it. I don't want my baby to be this gender anyway. So they'll alter that, and then once that allowance happens, these beings who get to say so and the green lights to start placing different traumatic experiences into the womb, that's when now the being will be able to be confused as soon as they turn 3 years old or 4 years old. Once that happens, the adult will not basically tell the teen diddy, for example, or just young groomers, for example, on why these actions are bad. Because if it's a boy, for example, you really can't tell a boy what to do with his lifestyle when he's growing up, because he has to become a man. But just because you had that ideology for your boy or your son or whatever, doesn't mean that you should accept it and let him take advantage of other boys and girls, because you are traumatizing other children as a child. And once you're doing that and it's just accepted, that's where generational trauma starts plaguing the families. And then if it plagues the family and you're mourning the being that you're seeing through the physical, they are now coming back into a trap that we keep, once again, like I mentioned earlier, that we are reincarnating into. And once that happens, reincarnation will keep on sending that different vibration for the energy that you were experiencing in your family to come right back into the exact same trap that they were over-sexualized in. They were not able to control their demons because their demons were controlling them through the form of what lust was plaguing into their mind every single day. Lust was a nightmare for them to where it became comfortable for them. So as a child, if you weren't giving your cousin or your uncle, your aunt, your grandma, your brother, your sister, your best friend, this stranger, if you weren't giving them what they wanted, they were going to hurt you. And to where now, if you spoke up on it, they were even going to kill you or threaten to kill you. Or beat on you. So now when somebody's beating on you and you lie about it, saying, oh, nobody did this to me, it's okay, I just fell. You're not being honest about what you are being groomed into accepting. So now if you accept that program at a young age and it's not corrected, when they get older, they will either get in trouble or get put into a casket for that. So where now the system will say, yep, another statistic that we're going to take care of in the system, to where now they're in our concentration camps. We will have them under mind control, to where now they will do our bidding, and then once they do our bidding, we're going to throw them into a cell, to where now the actual predators and groomers who are doing things at the exact same age, they will want to take care of you and have fun with you. That's where the line is going for beings who are not understanding their neuromelanin having to be activated at a young age. These beings are not aging like fine wine. If they're not aging with common sense, then they will lack the sense that should be common to normalize, which is basically loving ourselves once again. But if you cannot do that, they will make sure to put you in the back of a cop car and put you in a cell or a holding center or a holding block that has beings who think the exact same way as you. It can be detention centers or prison or jail. Doesn't matter. You do not want to go down that route if you are not being aware of who you want to be for today by loving yourself again. If you are confused, then sit with that confusion and talk to it and learn what it is and what it wants to be. Once you know what you want to be, you have to be consensual with your actions, because your actions can get you killed. Not only just that, can get your family killed as well. So you have to be able to be the guardian for yourself when you don't have guardians protecting you outside themselves as well. This goes just beyond what English can comprehend. You have to spiritually feel what is actually going on in society. We have too many beings out here who are letting money hide their groomer or the grooming actions, to where the looks are what groomers are using to get kids to come closer to them. The money, the cars, the lifestyle, the status, the name, the title, all these different ignorant programmings are what society holds on to for dear life. So where now surrogate mothers and fathers will sacrifice your children, their firstborn child, alter their DNA and their gender, to where now the whole family is getting paid forever. They're wealthy from generational wealth because this child was okay with being sacrificed, or the parents is basically getting them a say so, to where now the child is thinking that this is normal because, well, I was born a boy, but I got turned on into a girl, so I guess this is normal. It feels nice to me. How do they know that? Somebody taught them that, because it's a whole deeper perspective on what's actually going on from extraterrestrial beings who have done this not only to themselves, but it's an experiment that had chaos spill itself and it went wrong. It went bitter. It was so bitter because the biological database for us wasn't altered. So now the altering devices that were sent from higher mirages, from watchers, were watching us be ourselves, to where now we can't have these biological males become men. They can't be righteous men, because now we're guiding beings outside this realm. Why would we do that? So what we're going to do is we're going to ape the babies and the kids, the daughters, the sons, the aunts, the uncles, etc. Once we do that, from the elders to the kids to the babies, they won't know what hit them. They won't know how to escape. So a being who escaped this exact agenda or enlightenment can guide them into escaping it. But we're going to shadow ban these types of videos, to where now you can't like what you are supposed to be escaping from. You can't subscribe to it till people start sharing it. But while we want you to share the truth that people are still living in through their lives, that feel comfortable and they sound nice. Save your children. Because it's not only just adults grooming your children or even touching on them in inappropriate ways. It's family. It's also other kids as well. It's counselors, it's influencers, professors, celebrities, politicians, lawyers, judges, police officers, governments, your best friends. It doesn't matter what it is. Protect yourself, protect your inner child, and treat these children like as if they were your own. Who are you being if you're not protecting yourself from actual demonic entities that have a soulless awareness that actually cannot be aware of itself forever? When you know who you are and what you're walking in through righteousness, then you will not have to be here forever. Once you understand why you were placed here, to stay trapped in their agenda forever through transhumanism. Have a great and divine day, divine reflection.